So I'm gonna walk you through the entire process of turning on the machine for the first time, flashing the BIOS, configuring the BIOS, installing Windows, installing all the drivers, getting the machine ready to play your latest games, to edit your latest videos, to do whatever you like to do with your computer. So let's go to step one. Yes, back at the beginning. At the beginning, we created the Windows 11 install media from the Media Creation Toolkit. I have links for the video on how to create it down below in case you're interested. But then after that, we also copied all of the drivers and the BIOS onto this FAT32 formatted thumb drive. Let me show you how I did that real quick. All right, so first off, we popped in the thumb drive into our machine. All right, and this is just an older drive. So what we're going to do now is we're going to right click on that drive. We'll click Format. Just make sure you're right clicking on the right drive because we're about to erase it. So Format, and we'll name it D and B, drivers and BIOS. We'll make sure it's FAT32. It doesn't need to be a thumb drive this big, but this is what I have right now. So FAT32, and make sure quick format is enabled. If not, it takes a long time. And we click Start. And OK. And OK here, and close here. So now if we open up File Explorer and we go to this PC, we can see we have DMB right over here. So after that, we'll go to our motherboard support site where we download all the drivers and the BIOS. And then right here, we'll have downloads, BIOS, and all that information. First, we want the latest BIOS. So it's 2.02. This one optimizes USB port compatibility. Before that, we updated Agessa to Combo AM5, optimize XMP Expo boot time, updated Agessa, optimize AMD, so many fixes. Update your BIOS to the latest BIOS so you can have all of those fixes. It's going to clear up so many headaches. Update your BIOS. And we're gonna do it on video here so I can help you learn how to do that. So again, we'll download the latest BIOS and gonna go ahead and come in here. I'm gonna double click on that zip file. I'm going to right click on that ROM file that's inside of that zip file, and I'm going to place it on the root of that DMB folder. Right here, I just paste it. So now at the root of that folder, we have that ROM file. That ROM file is the updated BIOS file. Remember that. Okay, afterwards, we'll come to downloads. We'll download the high definition audio drivers, Bluetooth drivers. We'll skip the chipset. We'll get that later. Realtek LAN drivers, Realtek MediaTek wireless LAN drivers. We'll download the latest motherboard utility and the latest Asrock Polychrome RGB. Okay, then afterwards, we'll just click on the folder and we'll copy all of those files to our DMB thumb drive that we just created, that FAT32 thumb drive. So once we've downloaded everything, we can take those two thumb drives to that new computer. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and let's make sure it starts. At the very beginning, because we've never turned on this machine, we have to plug in everything. So we'll start with the HDMI cable, the video cable. Now, many of you, if you've been using onboard video, will be used to plugging it in right up here. That's incorrect, because now we have a graphics card. We're going to plug it in to the graphics card. And then we'll just plug in all the USB connections. It's now one important thing that we need to make sure we don't skip on because of this board and a few other boards. We want to plug in the thumb drive into the BIOS USB port. We don't need to, but just in case, there's a port already made for it. So we'll go ahead, we'll plug in everything around there, which is not a big deal. And we have a USB Type-C connection, which is right over here. Remember, this case is a little bit awkward. Power is up here. Now, I'm moving everything because it's gonna be the first time we turn it on. So like we discussed, this is the FAT32 formatted thumb drive. I'm just gonna plug that into the USB port. And did you notice I did it on the first try? That's amazing. Gonna turn it on for the first time. All right, so I'm pressing delete to go into the BIOS. All right, so we are in the BIOS now. I'm not going to set anything up because we're going to come over here to Tool, and we're going to go ahead, go to the Instant Flasher. We'll click yes. And then here, because we pasted it at the root of the thumb drive, it finds that flash file. Now, one thing I want to go over real quick is, let me come out of here real quick and go back to main. Notice that the BIOS version here is 1.30, and this BIOS version is 2.02. We've gone through a bunch of BIOS versions, and that's incredibly important because we're going to get so many fixes. So now we'll just click flash and yes. All right, now I got a little scared because the system turned off the minute I hit enter and then quickly turned back on and then started flashing. For those 15 seconds, my life flashed before my eyes because I was scared I killed it. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So anyway, let's get back to the flashing. Now, personally, I don't use BitLocker. But if you do use BitLocker, make sure you gather all your BitLocker keys and everything before you flash it, because you will lose everything, so that when you flash your BIOS, you can go ahead, put your key back in, and you can get all your information. Now that we've finished flashing the BIOS, let's go ahead, tap the delete key again so that we can enter the BIOS to configure it. After we load optimal defaults, now we want to come down here to the date. For a Windows install, in order for you to do Windows updates and to activate, your date and time need to be correct. So make sure you set the date, the month, the year, set the time. It's going to be a military time. And then when you're done, apply and okay. All right, so now after that, we'll go into OC Tweaker and we're going to leave performance preset on auto for now. The options here, PBO enabled, PBO and TJ Maxx, and so on. These are overclocking settings or to enable overclocking, and you don't want to do that on a fresh install of Windows. Once you flash your BIOS and you set all your settings, you're going to want to save that as a profile and you install Windows with those base settings. Once you've installed Windows and all the drivers and all the updates and everything and know that Windows is totally stable, then you can overclock. Once you overclock and you find that you have a good overclock, save that as a profile as well. Maybe next time if you come across issues and you have to reinstall Windows, load that base BIOS default you created, install Windows, and then load the overclock. You never want to install Windows on an overclock. All right, coming out of there, now we'll come down to DRAM profile configurations under DRAM frequency. Here under DRAM profile settings, we'll click auto and we have 5 options: JEDEC standard, the standard clocks, XMP 1 and 2, and AMD Expo settings. I'm gonna go ahead and set Expo 6200, which has looser timings than the Expo 6000. It also has a higher voltage just because that's the fastest. Now, mind you, it's not going to be the fastest because of the CAS, RAS, and TRAS, but I'm gonna leave it there. You could change yours, of course. Setting that Expo setting sets all of the CAS, RAS, TRAS, and all these other different timings. Then coming out of here, it also sets all the voltages here. So you don't want to mess with any of that. Then we'll go under advanced. Under PCIe configuration, you want to make sure above 4G decoding and resize bar are enabled. That way you can utilize resize bar. Coming out of there, we'll go into onboard device configuration. You want to make sure that if you're using a graphics card, is set to external. The other option would be internal, which would be the video off of your CPU if your CPU supports that. But if you have a graphics card, you want to use that. You'll make sure the onboard audio is enabled unless you have an audio card. Enabled LAN, WAN, and Bluetooth. Unless you don't want those, you can always disable those. Coming out of there, storage configuration. If you don't have RAID or not going to be installing on RAID, you're going to want to select AHCI. Down here under the ports, you're not going to see anything unless you have a SATA drive plugged in. And for your M.2 drive, under NVMe configuration, you'll find your M.2 SSD. So we'll come out of there. Under trusted computing, since we're installing Windows 11, we want to make sure device select is on TPM 2.0 and physical presence spec version 1.3. Coming out of there, I'm gonna go ahead, ignore these for now. We want to make sure full HD UEFI BIOS is set to auto, not disabled. You want to utilize UEFI. And UEFI style type, I prefer advanced, but you can do easy mode. So coming out of there, we'll go to HW monitor. Now, HW monitor, hardware monitor, is not just a monitor. If we scroll down, you can see some changes that we need to make. So CPU fan 1, which is this pump right here, we want to set full speed. Don't worry, this is actually incredibly quiet. And one other thing about the cabling. So because of how modular this case is, you're able to take off the liquid cooling unit that was originally right up here, take off the top panel. The reason I'm doing that is because the way I installed the liquid cooling unit last time was I just put all the power straight through the pump into the motherboard like we've done in other liquid cooling units. This one, the pump should go on its own power header and the fans should go on their own. So instead of one, you would use two. So what I would do is come over here. This right up here is the power. So I'd follow it up so I could see right up here is the power for the CPU pump. This pump header right down here. And then this is for the fans. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna go ahead and connect the ones for the fans to their own right over here to CPU fan optional. And then I'll connect the pump to CPU fan. But notice that the pump is a straight 3-pin. So the 3-pin is going to be 100% power, of course, unless you mess with the voltage, but 100% power to the pump is what we want anyway. So that'll go connected straight into CPU fan header. So now I'll put this all back together. Now, since we separated that, that'll make these quiet as well. So then coming over to fan number 2, where we have these fans connected, we want to set the control mode to PWM. That way it speeds up and slows down based on the temperature. Fan setting 2, we want to set to performance, but standard will work. I'm gonna put performance, which will be a little tiny bit louder. CPU monitor, yep, we want it to monitor the temperatures of the CPU and then raise its fan speed if the temperature gets too high. Okay, since we don't have anything else plugged in, we're going to leave those as default, okay? And we're not going to play with these. Then we'll come under boot. Now here is where you'll set either UEFI generic flash to be your Windows 11 install drive, or if you already have something on here, which I currently do, but we're going to erase that, you'll select your Windows boot manager. Again, I'm going to select this because this is my thumb drive for installing Windows. And then on exit, we'll save changes and exit. But one thing, since I know these are solid settings, I'm gonna come under OC Tweaker, save user defaults, select any one of these. I'll select the first one and I'll put base and I'll press enter. If I select load user defaults, I only have one, so base is that option. And then I'll come back over here to exit. I'll save changes and then I'll click yes to save those changes. All right, now after saving those changes, now we're booting off of the thumb drive and we can install Windows. We're gonna go ahead, select our language, time and currency format, and our keyboard input method, and next, install now. All right, then here if you had a key, you would enter it, but I'm going to click, I don't have a product key. Then we'll select our version of Windows. If we already have a key, we'll select that version, or whatever we feel like we're going to buy. I'll select 11 Pro. Next. Make sure to read through this incredibly important information, good stuff, and I accept, and next. Here we'll choose custom. Now, this is a drive that I've recorded this video now probably about 4 times, each time I've messed up. I've already installed Windows on this quite a few times, which is why we see drive 0, partition 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are all one install of Windows. Because we want to install Windows on here, we'll just click on that first partition, delete, okay, delete, okay. If this was a brand new drive that Windows has never been installed on, this is what we would see. Drive 0, unallocated space. Deleting partitions means I deleted everything on the drive. Now it is a brand new drive. It has 0 information on it. If you have any other drive connected into your machine other than the one you're going to be installing Windows on, I recommend you just unplug it or remove the drive. That way you only have one drive in your machine. You don't risk losing your data. One drive, no data loss. Let's keep going. And then we'll click next. I'm not clicking new, I'm clicking next. Now this is copying all of the information over to the drive. Okay, now that it's done copying the files over to the M.2, we can unplug it. And now we can plug in our driver's disk where our BIOS was also on, so that when we're in Windows, we can start installing the drivers. So we can either let it go or just click restart now. All right, now we are starting or continuing to install Windows 11. It's copied over and it's done most of the install. Now it's the configuring part. So yes for the region, or select your own region. The keyboard method or layout, and I don't have a secondary layout. Now connect you to the internet. If these aren't mine, or I don't have an Ethernet connection, I don't have the internet right now, I hit Shift F10 and that brings me to the command prompt. So I click to select the command prompt and I type OOBE \bypass NRO and press enter. After we UBI bypass NRO, it's going to restart on us. All right, so again, we'll select our country or region, and then our keyboard layout, and then our secondary keyboard layout. Now this time we have the option for I don't have internet. We'll select that, continue with limited setup, which is not really limited whatsoever. So I'll select that. Then I will enter my name, and I won't enter a password for now. And you can make all these changes. I'm just accepting it for now. All right, so now we're in a fresh install of Windows, and it looks like we're done, but we're not. So right now, if I right click on the start button and I go to device manager, you'll notice all of these little exclamations telling us that we have issues. Now, that's because we don't have any drivers installed. So right now our computer has no idea what it is. We need to install drivers to tell everything inside of the system what it is. Now, at this point, many of you would update the drivers using Windows Update, which works, but every single driver is outdated. If you look on NVIDIA's site, AMD's site, Intel's site, all of the different sites that create these drivers, they update them almost weekly. We don't get that kind of update in Windows Update. They're all old drivers, and they're gonna have a lot of incompatibilities and issues. Even though they're WICL certified, they're still gonna have issues. Again, which is why they create updates. So we're going to install the drivers the correct way. Let me show you. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, close this out, and go into File Explorer, this PC, and we go into our DNB. We're going to copy all of this minus these two. These are our BIOS file, and this is one of my video files. So I'm gonna copy all of that and then go into C and make a directory called drivers. I have caps locks on, and I'm going to copy them all to the drive. If you notice, all of these folder files here with that little yellow folder with a zipper, these are all zip files. For example, on this one, I'm going to click into it and then right click on the folder inside, copy, go back, and I'm going to paste it. So I'm extracting everything out of this file out here. So now I could delete this one, and I'm going to repeat the same process with every single file because we don't install from inside of a zip file. And I'm just deleting the zip files after I copy all the files out of them. Now you're asking, how do I know that these are zip files other than that little zipper right here? So if we go under the ellipsis here and we select options, under view, show hidden files and folders, and I like to open these as well, hide empty and hide extensions, apply, and okay. So now you can see the .zip extension. So double click on that, cut, paste, and now we're done with all of the zip files. Now, the very first driver we're going to install is the AMD chipset. You could think of the chipset as a foundation when you're building a house. You're not going to build a house unless you have a stable and sturdy foundation. That's where a lot of those driver issues come from. Let's keep going. Now, let's go ahead and install the chipset. All right, and leave a check in all of these and click install. Okay. If we come over here, now that it's done, right click device manager, you'll see most of those little bangs are gone. Now we have the video driver and Bluetooth driver. So we're going to go ahead. Here it says restart. Anytime a program asks you to restart, it's always best to restart, but not this way. We'll click close and then we'll manually restart from here. So you're asking, why manually restart? Just click restart from the program. Unfortunately, not all programs tell you correctly when they're done installing. So you might click restart, but the program isn't done installing. Now, about restarting, a lot of you don't like to do that. Did you notice how quick that restarted? That was a 5-second delay before I moved it to this part. It's incredibly fast. Don't skip it. All right, so we'll come back into File Explorer, drivers. Now we've installed the chipset, so let's go ahead and install the audio driver. We'll install all of the drivers for everything on the motherboard and work our way out. again with the foundation. No, I will not restart. Finish, right click and manually restart. All right, back here, File Explorer, drivers, and now we've installed audio. So let's go ahead and install LAN. That's the Ethernet. And finish. Notice that one doesn't ask us to restart. So we'll go back over here. We'll go to wireless LAN. That's Wi-Fi. Finish. We'll go back here. Didn't ask us to restart again. Bluetooth. Finish. Come back over here. Now we'll install the video drivers with the latest Adrenaline suite. Check over here for anything else. We're good. And install. Uncheck this and we'll click finish. But before we restart, right click here, device manager, and there are no more bangs. All of the drivers are installed correctly. We have a little more work to do. So close out of here, and we'll manually restart again. And now we'll select the little globe here and we'll select here, and let's get on Wi-Fi real quick. 1 sec. All right, now that we're on Wi-Fi, we'll click start. We'll type check for updates, and let's go ahead and enable get the latest update, and let's check for updates. It might be there a minute or two. Now we're doing updates. So I've taken you from the very beginning to flashing the BIOS, configuring the BIOS, installing Windows and installing all the drivers, even updating Windows. I've taken you from the start to the very ending. Now at this point, all you need to do is install Steam or whatever other gaming client you want and start gaming. Now, I do always recommend keep Windows updated. All you need to do, go in, do updates like I did. It's going to ask you to restart after a little bit. When it's done, do another Windows update. Make sure there are no updates. Unfortunately, a lot of the times you'll restart and there'll be more updates to go. Once you've restarted a few times and you check for updates and there's no more updates, you're good to go. You don't have to worry about them till next week or so. Anyway, this is your friend Iggy with ThisBytesForYou, showing you how to flash the BIOS, how to install Windows, and how to install all of your drivers so that your machine is tip-top and ready to go. Make sure to check out this video where I build inside of this case, and there's going to be a lot more coming soon on this. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.